The Sega CD is an oft-maligned video game console. It was overly expensive, an eyesore, took up a lot of real estate, and had a small library. That library had a lot of FMV titles, full motion video. In reality, this so-called full motion was more like postage stamp sized, highly compressed, and loaded with loads of artifacting video. The system did not do well commercially or critically for Sega and was the start of their multi-year downfall. But the Sega CD has garnered a cult following over the years. The system, while being imperfect, has some games that are truly standout. Some of these gems are a handful of role-playing games, and being that the RPG output on the Genesis wasn't huge, these games really help fill the roster. Original RPGs like Lunar and Lunar 2, compilation of Sega Game Gear Shining Force games with loads of extra content in Shining Force CD. A forgotten port of Eye of the Beholder, which might not be the best place to play the game, but had an incredible soundtrack by Yuzo Koshiro. The system also had the game we're talking about today, Vi. Vi is an old school, very old school RPG for the Sega CD. It was developed by Sims Co. Limited, the company who had brought us Shadow Dancer for the Mega Drive, Ninja Gaiden for the Master System, and Alien Syndrome for the Game Gear. They published it in Japan in October 1993, and Working Designs published it in North America in April 1994. And just like Lunar and Popful Mail, the giant ad in game magazines of the time is what alerted me to this game. And I just had to get my grubby mitts on it. In Japan, the game was known as Vi Ryusei no Yoroi, Vi Meteor Armor. The story of Vi begins in an age-long past. An ancient, sentient alien armor crashes down from outer space and wreaks havoc across the globe. It takes 5 magicians to seal the armor away. Fast forward 1,000 years to the wedding ceremony of Prince Sandor of Lorath and his beloved Elin. The wedding is crashed by the kingdom of Danek and their brand new mechanized soldiers. Turns out they have used the magic of science to build a mechanized army, essentially using the armor as a blueprint. With the king and queen dead and Elin kidnapped, Sandor goes on a quest to defeat Danek, avenge his parents, and rescue his beloved. The story is pretty cool. It's not entirely original, but has enough going for it that I have to find it captivating. It does have some anime tropes, mecha tropes, a bit of space opera flavor, and lots of wizardry, Ultima, Dungeons & Dragons seasoning. It's like a big tasty gumbo, but a gumbo that you feed to your eyes because you can't eat a metaphorical gumbo, but you can drink it in with your eyes. Working Designs has taken some liberties with the game, as they always do, so there's some pretty unfunny jokes and a few really unfunny jokes that they have added. But there's a patch out there that removes all of this if you're so inclined. Your party members include Sandor, the main character, Prince of Lorath, a great swordsman on his quest to rescue Princess Elin. Pottle, goofy elf magician fighter, is your first party member to join you. Rachel, an absolute powerhouse, doesn't know a lot of magic but uses claws and axes to fight enemies, very handy early on in the game. PJ, incredible magician and in reality probably the most important party member you get due to her massive amount of spells, including Blitz and Fix-All. Lynx, a pompous bard who's a hybrid fighter healer, his spells are mostly healing, and he has a bigger MP pool than PJ. Kinsey, your final party member, a pirate, decent fighter, and the only member who doesn't know the healing spell Bomb. You have a party max of 4, so you'll see a couple of these characters join and leave, and sometimes join again later on throughout the story. Partway through the story, plucky young Pottle is permanently killed for story reasons. This didn't happen too often back during this era of RPGs, so it's certainly notable. As mentioned, Vi is very old school. It has turn-based battles where you can attack, cast magic, defend, use items, but it also has an AI command. This is something that was pretty rare for the time. Admittedly, it doesn't work very well, but it's definitely something. Combat is fast-paced, with the load into and out of battle being very snappy, and the combat itself flowing well. And get used to combat, because you're going to be seeing a lot of it. Vi is not balanced well. Whether the original Japanese game was like this, or if the brutal difficulty, mandatory grinding, and useless healing items were additions of working designs, I could not find anything to confirm either. This game is punishing. You are going to be grinding before and after every single boss in this game. Bosses hit hard and have loads of hit points. There is very little wiggle room afforded to the player when fighting bosses. Healing magic and healing items are not helpful. There are only a handful of healing items in the game. Herbal extracts restore only a handful of HP, and strange brews restore only marginally more. The healing spells Bomb and Newman are the exact same thing, just in spell form. The amount of hit points recovered by healing items and magic vary wildly. Herbal extracts and bombs seem to heal somewhere between 20 and 120 hit points, whereas Strange Brews and Newman seem to heal something like between 40 and 140 hit points. Strange Brews mention that they are less filling, which makes you think, okay, maybe there's a fullness mechanic in this game in regards to healing items, but if there is anything like that at all, the seeming randomness to the healing completely nullifies this hypothesis. You can also find Sarufa's Kiss and Goddess's Love items, which do the same thing, but for your entire party. But these are very hard to find, and when you finally get to a merchant who sells them, they are obscenely priced. Plus, you'll probably have max HP at this stage, and randomly healing 40 to 140 hit points is absolutely useless. You can find the Phoenix Heart item, which heals one member to full health, but I only found 2 of them in the entire game. And healing your magic is even less effective. Moondrops cost 2,500 gold and only restore 20 MP. Bomb only costs 10 MP, but by the time you can buy Moondrops, you'll be only using it outside of battles to heal your party. Newman costs 40 MP and is nearly useless due to this cost. The best healing spell in the game is Restore. It heals all of your party members for most of their HP, but also costs 80 MP. When I made it to the end boss, my magic users had about 500 MP, so a couple casts in battle will completely tank your magic points. You want to know how to play Vi in the most effective way? Get to a dungeon. Grind, grind, grind until you've gained 4 or 5 levels. Make your way to the boss, running from every random battle. You have got to save your MP. Get to the boss chamber, save. You can save anywhere in this game, save for 1 or 2 places, and then fight the boss. Most bosses have a weakness which you need to exploit if you can. Dedicate 1 or 2 party members to healing, and finally, pray. You will eventually learn a spell called Thicksall that quadruples damage from 1 attack. This is pivotal to late game fights, but that's part of the problem. It's helpful for late game fights. And it costs 100 magic points, so you're only going to get a few casts of it per battle. You'll want to stock up on healing items even though they're mostly useless in battle once you get to the halfway point of the game. Strange Brews are 750 gold each, so you'll usually be broke when it comes to buying new equipment. Want to buy new gear every town? Grind for money. Grinding for money is even more tedious than grinding for experience. Some gear is upwards of 100,000 gold. This is an obscene amount of money for an extra 4 or 5 to your defense or attack. You'll get to a point where you'll want to use attack spells like Blitz or Inferno to hit all enemies for a couple hundred damage, as opposed to dealing 48 damage with a sword or axe. Thankfully, we live in 2022, and I'm gonna flat out say it. Use cheats to play this game. The experience and money is so broken, I totally support using cheats for experience and/or gold. Using an emulator's fast forward also makes grinding a lot quicker if that's more your speed. This latest playthrough, I absolutely abused that fast forward feature for grinding. You'll eventually get to a point where you fight these enemies called flea bags. They're basically the metal slimes of Vi. These enemies have loads of hit points and tend to run away from battle before you kill them. If you do manage to kill them, they give you a whopping 30,000 experience points. But the only real way to kill them is to get your magic users to cast Thick Sol on your fighters and then hope that you can hit them twice before they run away. The issue with this is that the flea bags don't appear until the late game. You need to have both of your magic users faster than the flea bags to cast Thick Sol on your two fighters, who need to be faster than the flea bags, and then your fighters need to attack the flea bag and hopefully kill them before they run away. This is definitely achievable once you're late enough into the game and you have a big enough magic pool and everybody has items that bring up their speed, but until then, abuse that fast forward button. The game's graphics are totally fine. I love Sandor's walking sprite and how he doesn't change which side he holds his shield with on while walking around. Not even a lot of modern games do that. World map, towns, and dungeons all look good, if somewhat repetitive, dungeons especially. Hope you like caves, because you're gonna be spelunking back to back to back caves. The battle graphics are great. The battle screen is from a third-person perspective like Phantasy Star 2 and 4. The enemies are right there in big bold sprites. Your stats are at the bottom of the screen with your characters hanging out just above them. Your party members and the enemies are animated, and for 1992 this is really great. This game was released around the same time as Dragon Quest V, and that game had no animated enemies, and the party wasn't even visible during combat. Really good stuff. The game also has a handful of cutscenes and they are gorgeous. The art style is that of a late 80s, early 90s fantasy anime and they look awesome. Reminds me of something like Record of the Lodos War or Bastard. Being an early CD-based game, you had lots of room for animation and dialogue, and while there isn't a lot, what Vi has is actually pretty good. Now let me tell you about the soundtrack. The music for Vi is fucking out of this world. It's one of those soundtracks that is so good that all you can do is drop your jaw in amazement at these songs. All I could find out about the composer is someone or some entity called Sakop. I can't find anything else online about them. I have no idea if they did other games or anime or if this is just a complete one-off, but man, what a soundtrack. These songs vary from traditional and light RPG town themes to out-of-this-world adrenaline-pumping electronica. Just have a listen to a couple of these tracks. In 2008, Samoga Inc. published Vi on the Apple iPhone. Weird place for a grind-heavy JRPG, but okay. Unfortunately, I can't find a lot of information on this version. The only real comment I have is that the new artwork of the party members is not very good. The art is downright amateurish. Samoga eventually published Lunar the Silver Star in 2012, and that seems to have been the end of them. The legacy of Vi is non-existent. I can't find any sales figures anywhere online, but it did not set the world on fire in any form. The few reviews I could find were middling to acceptable at the very best. There was no sequel, and other than the aforementioned iPhone re-release, it never appeared anywhere else. Sims is still around, occasionally releasing games, but these are mostly small titles for mobile phones. Working Designs became defunct in 2005, and as mentioned, Samoga seems to be non-existent now. Vi didn't change the world. It was an okay game on a doomed system, but it is part of a small group of games that a few people are very passionate about. The best that can be applied to Vi is that it is a part of the small stable of Sega CD RPGs, a small selection of games that are oft parroted to be underground classics. If Vi was released on a more successful system, it would probably be completely forgotten, eclipsed by better games in a better library, but being a niche game on a niche system in a niche group of games, it is something that a few people look back fondly on. Someone like me, someone who played the game to death in the early 90s and loved it so much he made a YouTube video about it in late 2022. And that is Vi. Did you ever play Vi? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Leave a comment below and let's discuss it. Please rate, share, and subscribe. We are closing in on 1,000 subscribers, which is far more than I ever thought we'd see. You're a great community and I really am glad that you're here. If you want to support the show, hit up ko-fi.com/RPG Fortress, and that's all from me. I'm Richard from RPG Fortress. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to hug a cat. Goodbye.